Hello, good day. My name is Carl, and today's November 25th, but for some reason I mixed up my days. I just left out November 23rd. I skipped a day. I got messed up. I don't know what it was. But November 23rd was my sister's birthday, and she would have been 53 years old. And maybe it was subconsciously I skipped over it because it's not. I get sad on that day. She should have had a decent life, and it was cut short by some crazy maniac son of a bitch. He shot her. Anyway, but that's not the whole part. That's not all the story. I remember, she was born on November 23rd, 1968. My parents divorced around 69 or 70, so my mother loaded us all up in the Volkswagen van. We went to Florida. I was like 13 or 14, and she was a baby. She was like one and a half. And we went to Florida, and my mother she had just finished college, and she decided just to move to Florida, and she wouldn't get along with my father, so they split up. And so she took us all to Florida, and she got a job as a teacher, and she ended up in Jacksonville. But we did a lot of camping and a lot of, we were kids, but I was kind of the oldest of the kids. We had my brother Chris, he was like 3 or 4. He wasn't very old either, maybe 5. And we accidentally left him in a laundromat one time in Daytona Beach. I remember that. Nobody noticed that we'd done laundry there, and nobody noticed that we forgot to put Chris in the car. So fortunately, we drove back real fast, and the ladies at the laundromat had them, and we recovered them. But can you imagine, so, but anyway, I remember taking care of Carolyn. She was a baby. She was a pretty independent baby. But I didn't make it in Jacksonville. My mom got a teacher's job in Jacksonville, Florida, Terry Parker High School. She was there a few years, but I didn't make it the full year. I got some kind of minor trouble, but my mother was pretty strict, and she was pretty strict with me. And, it's the first time that she was handling all of us, all 4 kids, and a teaching job by herself. And I'm going through adolescence, so I got shipped back up to my father. And from that point on, I've always felt kind of guilty about that. From that point on, I just kind of rebelled. And I had a really bad high school career. I did get out on time. And I actually dropped out when I was 16, but I went back, and I graduated on time, but I had the advantage of not going for a semester or so. But I did a couple summer courses. But anyway, I went to Sarasota High School with my mom, and I graduated on time, even though it was under the West Virginia credit system, which made no sense. It was rigged, but I got my high school diploma anyway, so it really didn't matter. And so I went into the Air Force shortly after. In the meantime, my mother got Carolyn and Chris back, and they lived in Sarasota for a few years. And then when I was in the Air Force, my mother decided she made some I don't know what, she must have been depressed or something, and they didn't have good medicine back in those days, and she attempted to take her life a few times. So my father ended up with all the kids basically. I was older, but basically that's what happened. It was a lot more ping ponging back and forth, but basically that's what happened. My father did a good job, as good as he could, raising the kids by himself. But Carolyn, he raised Carolyn. He got her through college. No, she was pretty good in high school. I remember she was like in the band, or she was like a majorette or something, and she had some good activities. She made good grades. She went to West Virginia University, got her degree. Everything was good. She married into a prominent family, and then mental illness started taking. About in her 20s, mental illness started showing. And anyway, her marriage, she divorced. They lived in Charleston. She had a pretty decent job in Charleston, but she came back to West Virginia. And she basically lived with my father for a while, but then it got real bad, tumultuous. And people don't know how to handle mental illness, and they still don't, and we've been through it. And but anyway, she hooked up with this guy somewhere along the way. His name was Childers. It's a big, long story. But anyway, she deteriorated. He totally abused her. He was a terrible person, horrible person. How she got hooked up with him, I don't know. But anyway, she started getting better. She got on better meds, and eventually, and she ended up having an apartment. She actually got a little money from her grandparents, and she actually bought her own car, and she was doing real good, and she was on some good medicine, and she was taking therapy. She was starting to recover. She was starting to beat her mental illness, and in fact, she was taking a drug, I think it was called clozapine, but she was taking it, was cleared her mind up so well that she basically, I have physical proof. I've had physical proof. It got thrown away, but I had a picture that she took of Childers, and I guess he killed another person, beat her to death on a bed. She wasn't there, had nothing to do with it, but she knew something was up, and she must have confronted him. And so he took her out to the middle of the state where the Childers, they had a hunting camp or something. I've seen it. I actually went out there and saw it later. And he took her out there. It was a rinky-dinky old shack. It was, you'd be better off sleeping in a tent. It was just it was horrible. But it was out in the middle of, like, Braxton County, West Virginia. And he took her out there, and police stopped them on the way, but they missed some signals or something. And he took her up, shot her in the head, killed her, buried her. Then he wrote these damn confessions because he's a lunatic. He writes these confessions, which was a good thing, I guess, because it wasn't a good thing he killed her, but it was a good thing that he confessed. He confessed through the confessions, and then the paper published it, and without our consent, without our permission. They didn't even bother to show us the Clarksburg paper. I don't know if it was a Clarksburg paper. Yeah, it was. It had to be the Clarksburg paper. But the police, just bad, poor judgment. I mean, I'm pretty tough-minded. I read it, and I'm glad I read it because I see what was going on through his mind. I think he wanted to be known as a big, horrible serial killer, and he did kill 2 girls. I guess that doesn't qualify as a serial killer, and but he killed my sister. He killed some poor little girl over in I think she was from like Philippi or something, but she worked at McDonald's in Clarksburg, and just beat her to death on a bed over in close to McDonald's, and one of those houses over there, where he lived. I don't know, but just beat her to death. In fact, one of my sister's pictures was a picture of a blood-stained bed sheet. Like a bedspread. And anyway, but I gave it all to the police. They didn't know what to do with it. The case was closed. They had their killer. But anyway, they confronted with all these confessions. They went on out to get him, and then he shot himself, which was good. I'm glad he shot himself. Justice is done, quick, easy, and that's why I got involved with the Brian Laundrie thing. But anyway, I'm passing 10 minutes here. I don't want to get cut off, but I remember, and this is the first time I really ever talked about my sister and dad publicly. Nobody ever really interviewed me, ever, so this is it. But anyway, it was a sad day when she died. It was her birthday. She should have been 53. And that's all. Thank you, and I'll talk to you tomorrow, which will be Thanksgiving. You take care.